theatre, film, TV and more. Suzy Rong reviews it all on Joy Drive.
Good afternoon, Suzy Rong.
Good afternoon, Warren. Every week when I set this homework that we are meant to watch, do you approach it with some trepidation?
Yes, I think, what on earth has she picked for me this week? Do you?
Yeah, and you're terrified that it's not going to be great.
Yes, and sometimes it isn't. I mean, the last couple have been fantastic, haven't they? I like the way we're talking around.
Yeah,
in
but
circles.
we certainly have had... We certainly have had experiences when it wasn't great, but for me, it was a positive experience this week, I'm happy to report. And I don't know how you feel. Actually, I can't really predict.
I was really surprised to see a mutual friend in one of the stories, the one about the dog. So that was good.
Yes, our mutual friend Yu Chen, who's starring in one of the episodes in this week's program, and he's done so fantastically well.
Definitely. Okay, we are talking about erotic stories, which you can get now on SBS and SBS On Demand. Suzy, what do you reckon?
This week we get into the great Australian tradition of turning to the SBS for some sexy action. Erotic Stories is a new anthology series with 8 episodes offering a glimpse into our private lives as sexual Australian beings. There are 4 queer stories and 4 hetero stories, all taking place in the present day. Curiously, not one episode is concerned with marriage or married couples. Make of that what you will. There is a certain adventurous spirit to the relationships that it portrays, and definitely a lot of spiciness to be discovered. No genitals are shown on screen, but fret not, for if raunchy sex scenes are your thing, and why shouldn't they be, Erotic Stories does not shy away from those. It is, however, never titillating in a pornographic way. The individual tales seek to explore through sexual behavior the deeper, more spiritual aspects of who we all are. You will probably end up liking some episodes more than others, but there is no question that all of them are intriguing and all of them reveal fascinating things about us as real people living in the world today. Through this lens of frank sexuality, we are given the opportunity to understand ourselves in ways that reveal the deeper truths about how we think and how we act. It is essentially an examination about the values that we hold as Australians today, beyond the myths of green and gold true blue Australian ideals. As an immigrant, I feel particularly taken by the racial diversity in Erotic Stories. There are many things we can criticize Western culture for, but sexual liberation is not one of those. It is a great gift that our sexualities can be discussed in such an open, healthy way, and to see on television people of color indulging in rewarding sexual experiences is very gratifying indeed. Erotic Stories is one of the best things to have come out of the Australian screen industry, in my humble opinion, and I urge you all to take some time out to check it out on SBS. Warren, I want to ask you, which episode was your favorite?
I liked the one with the guy in leather. I thought that was good. And, of course, I liked the one with the lost dog as well, those two. And I think that's one of the things, Suzy, I suppose, with this I noticed is I found myself gravitating to the ones that I could identify with more rather than so much watching the whole lot. But the diversity was absolutely amazing. Yeah.
It's interesting that you felt like more connected with the 2 stories that had gay men feature in them. I guess it's only natural that you do that way. And I'd like to point out the one that you talked about that had sort of the BDSM elements in it is written by Alistair Baldwin, and it features very heavily a narrative about disability and the kind of shaming and the kind of fetishizing that occurs with people like that character who has cerebral palsy. I think it's really, really meaningful, and for me it's quite eye-opening. I don't think it's news to me as a trans person that's kind of fetishizing that happens, but it's interesting to see how a different sort of minority group experience it, and because it's written from like what seems like a first-hand experience. Alistair Baldwin himself lives with disability, and it's really interesting to see how he expresses those feelings and how the story resolves itself in a very, I think, a very sophisticated way. Like the way it ends is not very predictable. It's not very sort of typical and cheesy. The way it ended was really beautiful.
I think so too. And I mean, is there anything wrong with fetishes? There's nothing wrong with having fetishes, and I think that the series handles them really, really well. I mean, diversity. We've got straight, queer, First Nations, disabled people. I love that if you watch it all, we've all got something in common, and that is sex and intimacy. I mean, who would have thought that heterosexuals have sexual fantasies other than reproducing in a matching twin set? I think it's great.
But culturally, we have for many generations shied away from talking about it. Like obviously, straight people have all kinds of sex, and queer people are not the only ones who have kink in our lives. It's just that culturally, we have had such a huge problem talking about it. For many years, we never had the term sex shaming, but slut shaming, for example. So before the term even arrived, because we never had the language, we've kind of ingested and sort of bought into this idea that we have to be a little bit reticent about our sexual lives, and sort of we kind of had a lot of shame about those things, which in this series clearly that is a thing of the past. Like it is all out in the open, and I really admire that they kind of push the envelope a lot with maybe not the nudity but the sexual activity. Like we were actually seeing them doing a lot of very quite realistic sexual things, not in a way to kind of be controversial, but just to show, this is what you do and this is what I do, and it's all normal. It's sometimes a little bit funny, sometimes a little bit different if that's not your thing, but it's shown in a way that, I think is educational. It's healthy to look at.
And you don't need the nudity to get the message across. There's diversity in sex in it. Something that I really want to talk about, Suzy, is also there's diversity in age. And I think that's really, really important, because I don't think we necessarily talk about the older members of our community. We make assumptions that I suppose we're all active sexually in our young 20s and what have you, and then it starts to die off. And, personally, I actually find I'm more in touch with what I like and like doing now than what I did in my young gay men times. I mean, it was all about, I suppose, being validated back then, but now it's more about, I really enjoy this. So I think it's good that they show the diversity and we get older people on the screen as well.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think I was very good at sex until I was like in my late 30s. I felt like I was, like a blind, that's very ableist language. I felt like I didn't know what I was doing when I was younger, just kind of letting my hormones guide me and just kind of, and then also at that, when I was younger, relying a lot on drink and alcohol, just get myself intoxicated just to get into it. And then I found that with maturity, sex became better. There are some examples of middle-aged people in erotic stories. Frances O'Connor does a fantastic job as an uptight sort of executive and kind of being propositioned by a younger employee in the company to sort of loosen up. That story is fantastically done. I wish there were like literally old people. I wish there were stories about people in their 60s and 70s. Yeah. That's what I'm very curious about. And I think everyone's curious about that, because we all want to know, or at least have some idea about what our sex lives are going to be when we are at that old. Because culturally we are taught to think that, old ladies don't do it. But that can't be true.
Oh, they do it and they love it, and so they should, and everyone absolutely should. I think, I find that it's getting better as I get older, because you haven't got that insecurity about you. It's not like just getting your rocks off and tick the box and, okay, someone finds me attractive, I must be a worthwhile person. It's about, intimacy and connection, and I find it just gets better and better and better the older you get.
Yeah, it's interesting. I sometimes like to think about it as being able to have fun without your ego in play. Do you know what I mean? As you're older, your ego kind of takes a backseat easier, and you can allow yourself to have fun and sort of be in the moment and be in the flow and engage with the other person or persons without worrying too much about what does this act mean about me? What does doing this and putting myself in this position say about me as a person? You know, as you're older, you kind of let that go a little bit more. Unfortunate that there isn't a kind of like a trans person. I guess at the final story, there is a there's a genderqueer story about someone who's, I guess, non-binary. But I thought, you know, obviously watching from my perspective, I thought someone more like me would have been interesting. But I don't know, maybe there'll be a second season.
Maybe, and maybe you should be starring in it, Suzy. I thought, really, and do you find, Suzy, as you get older, I mean, you know, you and I are of a similar age, do you find you're more willing to try out different fetishes and explore different fantasies? Because I know I'm willing to, I'll just do anything. I don't care. It's all about fun and having that, as long as there's consent, of course, and having that confidence to say to someone, you know what, this is nothing personal, but it's actually not working for me. You know, let's end it. Whereas when I was young, I was too scared to tell people that I wasn't enjoying myself because I thought they might get offended. And so I would put myself through it and think, I'm not really enjoying this. But now there's that confidence to say, you know what, I'm not. And as long as you do it in a nice way, and that is something that gay men need to learn to do.
Yeah, I agree. It's that ego thing, like as though if you're going to enjoy this, that means something about you. As if you're not able to go through with this, that means something else about you. You know, that's not really true. It's just acts and things, and you know, and a lot of it you kind of don't really know until you experience it, and you know, you try it, and you might pick up something within sort of like your vocabulary of sexual things that you like. Yeah, and sometimes you might not like it the first time, and then you get used to it, and then you find that you have so much more you can do, so you become sort of more unlikely to be bored sexually, because I think that people might be a bit bored because especially if they're in monogamous relationships, you know, you feel like, oh, this is what we do, and that's what we've done for a long time, and then we're not able to break out of it. I'm not saying that you need to break out and find other partners, but within the relationship, surely, you know, there are ways to be adventurous.
I haven't put the riding whip that you sent me for my birthday to practice, but I nearly surprised someone on the weekend, I can tell you that.
What held you back?
Bang! No. I thought of you, Suzy, and I couldn't continue.
Look, you're not the first person to call me to call me a birth prevention device.
I just thought, well, Suzy must be watching. It is called Erotic Stories. It is on SBS on demand. Suzy, we encourage people to watch it. What are we watching for next week?
The Melbourne Queer Film Festival is coming up very soon, starting on the 9th of November. More info at their website, mqff.com.au. We're not on air next Tuesday because people will be busy racing horses for some weird reason. But Warren and I will be checking out some of those titles in the MQFF, and we will report back on Thursday next week. So I'll see you then.
Thanks, Suzy. And of course, it is Erotic Stories on SBS On Demand.